I'm pleased to announce we have Juan O Savin with us today. And of course, we're starting at 1:07 here on the Pacific Coast. So perfect timing. And Juan and I kind of like agreed that he's going to talk a little bit about the Special Forces action that happened just recently. And to give you a little insight, there's like 1% of people have gone in the military. 1% going to Special Forces. There's like 1% of us have like these intuitive abilities. So when I look at Juan Savin's information, it impresses me on an incredible level. And his new book, Kid by the Side of the Road, my God, you guys, if you have not read that book, everyone in the world needs to read this book. It's going to blow you open. And then when you read that book and you listen to Juan Savin talk, you're like, understand him on a whole different level. All right, Juan, so pleased for you to join us. Thank you very much.
Hey, and I've really enjoyed, your audience has been fantastic. And, I really appreciate that we got a chance to cross paths here a while back. And it's always fun to find new audiences to share stuff with. And so I'm very appreciative. They're a great audience.
Yeah, they're fantastic. Thanks.
Just diving right into it. So a lot of people have heard about the whole situation with the servers and the Seidel stuff over in Germany. And just to clarify that, it was reported as though, we'd gone in with practically tanks and helicopters or something, and that's not quite what transpired. According to what I've been told by some of my folks that are tied into this was a facility that was being used by CIA, by that type of an operation, kind of a safe house type situation like what you would have in Benghazi. People thought that Benghazi was a State Department, regular offices or something. It wasn't. It was a safe house. It was the villa. It was where they did a lot of their meetings at, but there was no official to the public operation there at all. It wasn't someplace you'd come to get your passport stamped or something like that. So that was just BS. This was a safe house location where the ambassador could meet with other people. And, this was kind of a similar situation in Germany, probably what you would see in your movie stuff and like that. And they had servers in there. And of course the contention is, well, who was running that operation? What was the logic between, who was involved in that? And we have a contingent that's out here really working against the president and working against the country. And they're in these 3-letter agencies. If you haven't seen that, you're not paying attention. That goes all the way back with the dossier and everything else. So knowing that, this was policing and a military contingent that went in there, took control of a facility that was technically under our control anyway, and seized servers and materials there at that location that technically are really the property of the United States government anyway. And then we'll get to the bottom of who's behind what and how that fits somewhere along the way. One component that's not known out in the public so far, and I know it just because I've been on it for months, there's a connection between this Seidel Dominion computer vote system and Switzerland. And in a bankruptcy operation, Switzerland got, the Swiss post office got control of that voting system. So there's an angle there. I know the players involved. I know what the assertions are. It's still got to be fleshed out a bit. And I've actually been in communication with folks to decide how that maybe is going to proceed. Who's going to proceed to go look into that. But there's an angle there even into the Swiss government that's interesting. And the reason that's also relevant is because there's a tie with a particular individual all the way back to Arizona and some of the crowd that was cooking the vote all the way back in Arizona. Now, Some of those members have gone out and spoken directly with Giuliani, and part of that investigation, there was a gentleman who was really acting as a patriot to get those people in front of the right people, had his personal jet flown out, picked him up and brought him back, and has also ferried other people around the country. So you got some patriots. And I just have to say something, in that particular case, that was a person that was not a big fan of President Trump. I don't think he was ever, a never Trumper. He just had a different viewpoint on the world. But what's interesting is this situation has caused so many Americans to have to rethink what they've been told and how they viewed the world around them, their part in the world. And here again, you have a person that is very successful, very well connected, and he is beginning to maybe see things differently than what he thought. A lot of the relationships, there was a lot of people that poo-pooed President Trump when he was candidate Trump and when he was businessman Trump, as though he was just in it to, get the helicopter in the car and the flash of being president. And they've come to realize, I think, over time now that just is not who this person is. This is a person that cast aside his personal well-being to do something really important for the country. And the legacy of President Trump that we will remember 10, 50, 100 years from now, 1,000 years from now, is that he came in and took the hits in order for us to expose just how cooked, how captured the American system has been, and to begin to move to get us back to a fair vote, real representation, and away from this stolen, captured Operation America that we've had to live with and endure back even before President Kennedy's assassination.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's part of the thing, even with the book, that people have to remember. I'm trying to give this big picture viewpoint. How are we going to get our country back on track? It's not just a matter of getting the right politicians in place now. There's so many aspects of America where we've been deindustrialized, shut down. Critical operations in the country have been moved offshore, and that was done at very high levels inside the government with people that were bought and paid for it, kind of like a Godfather movie, senators, representatives who have sold themselves out for money for themselves and their families so that they do well, but at the expense of the rest of America, really the rest of the world, because they have a globalist perspective. They see America being deindustrialized, being shut down, and they're going to feather their nest somewhere else. They're not acting and thinking like Americans. They're thinking about themselves and their families over everybody else. And the reason I mentioned this gentleman who was using his jet to go ferry some of the folks around to get things done quickly without waiting, he's thinking like an American. And he may not have come into this battle fully understanding, but he's getting an understanding every day that it's increasing. He's seeing what's really going on. He's seeing the players behind the scenes, the manipulations that have been going on in plain sight, but they just weren't, you couldn't stop it and you couldn't identify it precisely. And so all of a sudden he's got a different perspective. Now he's all in. Whatever I got to do, let's just make it happen. We've got to get to, resolution, the truth, something here. And that's what's fun about this moment. I'm actually very excited to see people waking up collectively, coming out of the slumber at every level to just do whatever it takes to get the country back on track.
Yeah, and in your book, like I believe everyone in the world should read that book, but you even talk about the number 17 on a very interesting level and how it's kind of like in their face. I think when people see that in your book, like I did, I was like, oh my God, this is on such a even more incredible level.
Well, I'll tell you this. I've had other people around me, and I keep pointing out the numbers in various actions. And once you start to see it, you realize, oh my gosh, it's everywhere. And it's so orchestrated. You just, the 1133, 11.3 stuff, just over and over and over. So there's a bunch, for example, I'll give you an example. There was a bunch of state communications from players that are kind of inside the scam here. And all of their messages back and forth to each other, all the state people sent their messages out at the same time, 1103, which is a 33. And it was just comical. And one of the people pointed out to me, he says, well, it's what I've been telling you all along. But they're so blatant. They're slaves to the numbers. And they have to have that symbology, that numerology, and also astrology. They tie things to how the celestial alignments are occurring, both in the planetary system and in the star system. And so certain events are critical to them in order to brand something with what they consider to be winning symbology, winning numerology, winning celestial alignments. And they have this occult idea that they can time stuff in that way, brand it in that way, and they get some extra power. Look, at the end of the day, these people that we're fighting are actually, for real, certifiably insane. I mean, I'm not actually kidding about that. They're actually off their rocker completely, but you have to understand how they think in order to get to, how are you going to fight them? If you understand how they think, you got a better chance of actually anticipating, seeing how they're moving, and then getting ahead of them and stopping them. And that's part of why they'll fail. They're so locked into the symbology and numbers and everything else that they can't help themselves.
Yeah. And you can see that on 9/11 when they dropped the Twin Towers and all the other symbology. The Earth Day is when the oil well down in the Gulf exploded.
Yes.
So all these things that play these games with the numbers, and when you see that, it's like, oh, they're at it again. Yep.
Well, in fact, on the BP thing down there in the Gulf, someday I'll talk about it more in depth. Almost nobody knows that was actually a test for other things that they want to do that have to do with the other physics, and at an adjacent location there. And so there's a certain reason why that was done, in order to test expressing, manipulating things at a planetary level from that type of a location. It was a test of technology. So there's all sorts going on that we can't get out in the weeds for the time being with people, and you kind of have to have an understanding what the rest of the technology is like. But that was so much bigger than even people now understand. There was a whole bunch more going on, and that's the case with a lot of this stuff. You're seeing things that you think are just for a little local situation, but actually they're trying to get into a position where they can take over planetary control. It's that big. If you don't see it at that scale, then you kind of miss what's really going on. And that's why the president, the people around him repeatedly say it's so much bigger than you can imagine. It's like I've mentioned on your show and others, China has a deep state. Well, who's their deep state? The same deep state as we have. It's the same players that are running China behind the scenes against us behind the scenes, and vice versa. It's the same players that are really behind Russia. They're trying to manipulate us. They divide us, get us working against each other, and they're the ones doing all the managing to keep us weakened while they seal the deal, if you will. on planetary control. And if they succeed, it'll be 1,000 years of slavery if we're lucky. If they have their way, it might be 10 or 20 or 50 years before they wipe us out, and they're the only ones who survive in their bloodlines. And while that may seem fantastical, it may seem incomprehensible to many people, the reality is they really are certifiably mad. It's like a James Bond movie, and they believe that they can wipe us out and their bloodlines survive. It's that crazy. So we can't underestimate our enemies on this. We have to think bigger and see things bigger, and that's one of the gifts. It's like it's a divinely inspired gift to have President Trump and the people around him in this situation, because they do see it at that level and they're operating accordingly. If you underestimate these guys, they'll hand your head to you on a plate. I mean, literally. And so that's why we're having these conversations. As people see it at that kind of a scale, then they don't, you can't be criticizing the president on every little tiny thing when you don't even understand the magnitude of the operations that we're involved in to recapture the vote, so that people have an honest election, get people that actually are interested in taking care of the American people, their own constituents. And then, by the way, this isn't America only, it's make America great again. But then what do we do after we get America back on track? You know, we're cleaning up our own house. Mm-hmm. Then we're going to go out and help the rest of the world. And it's not about being our brother's keeper, us just being the next one to want to enslave people. A lot of people, somebody commented the other day, and I got to tell you this, Michael, I had somebody a comment the other day, and it really upset me that talking about how America was, dominating the world and colonialists and all this other stuff. There's a crowd that's been in control here, just like in these other countries, that's been using us for their mischief, using our military, using our State Department to do their bidding. But the reality is that's not classic American. That's not who we are. But we're a captured operation as a country. And so you can't look at that and just blame the American people any more than we should blame Chinese people for what happened with this virus coming out of China. It's these globalists manipulating, using our system. We're captured operations, and we have to separate what's been happening at an individual level from what's been happening, that's been by our people or something. So we have to kind of put it in perspective and then realize, no, we got to take those guys out, stop letting them use us for their purposes, and get back to operating as Americans, American way, period.
Definitely. And, they've been using our compassion and our goodness for a long time, but we really need to think like special forces guys and start to move very quickly and work these guys. I know you've been involved in this for a very long time. You showed me some of your work from far back, so it's pretty amazing how long you have been involved. And I know there's a lot of other patriots that have been working behind the scenes as well. We're at that inflection point right now. This good against evil. A lot of people have been talking about that for a long time, but this is really it. This is the thing, we've talked about for, thousands of years. We're at that inflection point right now.
Well, let me just say something here too. Your listeners, those people that are here right now, you're seeing a kind of history that people have been dreaming about all of my life. The people that I've been around, they've done all sorts of things to just get by, to get to this moment in time. There's lots of cover operations you have to do to have credibility, pay the bills, do other stuff while you're doing really important things in the background. And a lot of these people, you'll never know the rest of their history. One of them, a great friend, just passed away 2 days ago. and out of Oklahoma, oil man Steve, and he done his own wildcatting, great stuff. Had dozens of his own wells, probably drilled 100 wildcats during his lifetime, and he had big money. During the Obama administration, they changed the rules, and Steve was one of the guys that got wiped out. He was doing fantastic, and the rule changes, took his income down 90%. He built a whole lifetime to be able to retire, enjoy life, and do it. And then on top of that, because of exposure to some of the gases and the dust and like that over a whole lifetime, never really smoked or anything, he was damaged in his lungs, and that finally caught up to him, and he died way too young the other day. And we had talked a couple times over the last few weeks, but of course he knew that I was right in the thick of it, and he was dreaming. He held on a year ago to stick around to see the end of this. We talked about it. I'd said at the time, I says, come on, bro, stick around. It's gonna be great. You're gonna really enjoy this. And he did stick around to see the election and everything. And he had asked me point blank here probably a week ago before he went in for this procedure. Just promise me you're going to win this for the country, for the kids. And, I promised him. I told him, don't sweat it. We got it. We got this thing. And he was, by the way, he was an Air Force B-52 trainer. He trained in the simulators, all the pilots and the G models. And he was a heck of a guy, great Air Force guy. And he will be missed.
That's wonderful that he stuck around and you had that influence on him. It's fantastic.
Well, and I keep saying it, but there's so many guys. I mean, I go through my mind. There's so many guys that wanted to be here, to be part of this right at this moment. And a lot of the listeners are thinking, well, but I'm not part of this, or they don't see the importance of this. Talking with your neighbors, family, friends. That's why I did the book. Was kind of a coffee table book. A lot of your listeners know stuff that I've said and shared over the years repeatedly, but having it in one place helps to kind of be able to just go through it. And then it's kind of a coffee table book magazine that you can almost pick it up anywhere and find something interesting if you have relatives over and like that. And so the value is that it's a conversation starter. And sometimes you don't even get the conversation. They'll read it when they're over looking at something, or for the relatives, get off in their own world and think again. Just like the guy using his jet to fly around and get these people in the right places to make a difference, getting this vote scam uncovered and corrected. This is a numbers game. If we don't win on the numbers, we don't win. So, for example, we may have won this election with a 70% vote for President Trump. If it was only 52 or 53%, if it wasn't as overwhelming as it is, we might not actually have gotten far enough over the numbers to make it blatantly apparent to everybody in the audience just how fully we do have this situation, taken care of. It wouldn't be so blatantly obvious, I guess, and because we do have the numbers, most people are aware that a fraud has occurred, and it's a big fraud. So then we come back to what's the solution moving forward? That more people come to the fight. Look, we're going to have other parties. We can't be a one-party system. That's one of the things that I'm also concerned about. I don't think the Democratic Party exists in any meaningful form after 2022 with all the revelations that are coming out. But a big component of the Republican Party is going to be cleaned out also. It is not one side. We've got traitors and sedition, going on in the Republican Party too. So we have to anticipate something different in the American system. But for example, when we took down the Soviet Union, we won World War III. Soviet
Yeah.
Union doesn't exist anymore. Great guys did incredible work, and the Soviet Union is gone. Um, Instead of going to a hot war and nuking whole cities, we beat them, we outspent them, we outbuilt them, we out-technologed them. We survived and they didn't. But in the aftermath of that, we didn't have that give and take thing. It was like somebody let go of the rope. And so there's a certain kind of a struggle there that, a strong counterpoint keeps you sharp. So you have to and then China came on and people got China going in the background, and Russia is back. They're there. We have to stay sharp because of it. But my point is that there's a certain iron sharpens iron as brother sharpens brother. There's a certain, even if it's not what you want, if you have a strong opposition, it keeps you on your game. You pay attention. So not having a Democratic Party there and keeping us sharp, you could get kind of laid back and not as versed on stuff over time. Right now, we're keyed up. We're going to win this thing. It's going to be decisive. A lot of these people are going away for the rest of their life in this world, and we're going to get it under control. But then how do we balance that out so we get back to having real conversations as a country and to get things back on track? Well, we're going to have some people come in and they have different viewpoints, and that's going to be useful because those different viewpoints will keep us healthy. So we want folks to come in and have that different viewpoint, and it's going to be in the form of a party, a political party or two. That's healthy. I don't want just one. It's not healthy from President Trump's side either. This isn't just about 2022 or 2024 even. Who's going to fill that role as the faithful opposition? Who are those people going to be? I don't mind having, if it's an honest discussion, I'm not afraid of an honest discussion. Let's get some people in there that have different viewpoints that can be honest about it and figure out what's best for the country. And it's not just a Republican conservative only type of a thing. And there's so many issues that we have to be able to discuss. We've been twisted on what this global warming thing is. We've been twisted on this whole carbon and water thing. Why? Because it suits certain globalists' objectives. How do we get to the best energy system for the planet? The planet runs on energy. People need energy. People need to be able to warm their houses, cool their houses, grow things, go places, do stuff. And this shutting down of America, this deindustrialization of America doesn't help the world, doesn't help us. So we're going to have to turn it back on. We're going to need energy to do that. Is it oil? Is it gas? Is it other things? Well, I'd say that there's a little bit of balance. There's a transition, but it's other things too. So there's a conversation that has to be had to get there. You're not going to do that with just one party because then people only come up with one idea. That's why, guys need their wife's input and vice versa. Why? Because they don't see things the same, but sometimes that saves you from a disaster. Even if you don't want to hear the other side, there's times that they're able to provide you with a perspective that you wouldn't have otherwise thought of, and keeps you out of trouble. So anybody that actually knows what's going on with those kind of relationships gets it, that you have somebody with another view for a reason. If you both thought the same way, somebody isn't necessary. We as a country need people that will be honest, have an honest conversation, that might have a different viewpoint to get to what's best for us as a country to move forward.
Yeah, that's beautifully said. I'm always stressing that, us guys, we need to tap into that feminine side of ourselves to bring in the intuition, the higher levels of consciousness. And for women, they need to be strong, because these people that are trying to destroy us, we can't have sympathy for them. We have to be compassionate, yes, but we have to start being strong and start to push back and have that warrior mentality, that special operations force guy mentality. So what I know, you're busy doing some things in one of the locations where you work at. Can you talk about the
yeah, let's get into it a little bit on the I'm in Vegas right now, and we're getting ready to switch cities. There's a lot of stuff going on the East Coast. I know that a number of folks are in Georgia right now and have been coming into Georgia over the last day or two because of what's going on as far as the fight. And but Vegas with Clark County is really a big deal, and the reason is because unlike a lot of these other contested areas around the country where they're trying to get to a recount isn't going to fix the issue. A recount will only give you kind of the same number because somebody was in there and cooked the books, if you will. They change things in ways that you just can't unscramble the egg. But in Vegas and Clark County, there were specific things that were done real.
It's impossible to think about where we're going without appreciating everywhere we've been.
Related to the way that the ballot